So I guess I just very briefly, the reason I'm talking to you about this subject, when I'm not running around the world playing guitar, I work as an independent consultant for NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory. This is sort of a new career turn a couple of years ago, and I've been an independent consultant working to evaluate and basically give advice when needed on a microphone that's going to land on Mars in the year 2021. And what was I? Oh, I was pissed because the space. Did you guys go to space camp?
Yeah.
Who here went to space camp? Woo! Yeah, the rest of us hate you. I saw that in the intro. Like I had some friend who like rubbed that in my face all the time. Like, you know what? Screw you. I get it. I didn't go to space camp. Okay, so when I was a kid, another brief history. I was a member of two clubs, which I've never admitted publicly for the first. This is now. One was the Weird Al Yankovic fan club. I'm really not making this up. And the second was the Planetary Society. And okay, so are you guys? Anybody here members of the Planetary Society? All right. So the Planetary Society was it was started by this beautiful turtleneck-wearing genius, Mr. Dr. Carl Sagan. And in 1996, Dr. Sagan wrote a letter, and I'm going to read it to you because I don't want to screw it up. And part of that letter, he was the one who first publicly suggested the idea of capturing sound on the surface of Mars. And he wrote, quote, in part of this letter, "Even if only a few minutes of Martian sounds are recorded from this first experiment, the public interest will be high, and the opportunity for scientific exploration real." So that was 1996. That was sort of when this began. And then I got slides now. They have the information I need. Let's try this. Okay, 1999, a couple years later, the Planetary Society funded a microphone that was going to get sent with the Mars Polar Lander. And for those of you that know your satellite history, that didn't work out so well. The Polar Lander never landed. Well, it did land. It landed rapidly. That wasn't meant to be quite that funny, but rapidly and at great expense. But anyway, there was a microphone on it, which was presumably didn't record that either. Anyway, so, and then I believe, this isn't on here, but I think in about 2001, following the once they realized they were going to send a microphone to Mars, some other scientists got together and wrote this long report, which actually we found very useful when we were doing our research, studying the atmospheric properties of Mars and how you would actually hear anything up there, because it's only about 1% atmosphere, and but sound does travel, and then so there's atmospheric properties of not only atmospheric pressure but also chemical properties, because the gases are slightly different. So you get these weird EQ curves, which I won't bother you with right now, but basically it sounds better than you would think. Well, anyway, what happened is the Phoenix lander did land successfully on the surface, and there was a microphone on it, but it never actually got turned on. And I wish this had an off switch so I could make that really dramatic. And there was some technical details due to how the microphone, as I understand it, I'm kind of riffing this, but I think it was how it was configured to the main computer in such a way that there was concern. Nothing actually went wrong, but there was concern that activating it might do a hard reset on the computer or something. Something very undesirable for a very far away instrument. So anyway, it never got activated. So now, fast forward, we've had these attempts to record sound on the surface. None of them have succeeded, and Curiosity just didn't fly with a microphone. But 2020 is going to. And what do I got here? Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you, by the way, to Rebecca Larson, who not only got me on this event, but also helped me with the slides today and taught me PowerPoint. So she's right there. A brilliant astrophysicist in her own right who has given many talks, and she's amazing. All right. Mars 2020 microphone. So Mars 2020 is, everybody here is familiar with Curiosity, right? Okay, well, if you're not, it looks like that. 2020 was basically NASA trying to be smart about their money, so they wanted to use as much of the design of Curiosity that they knew worked, including the crazy sky crane landing maneuver, which, have you guys seen the video for that? It's nuts. If you haven't, Google sky crane or YouTube. Nobody's ever seen it, is the point. It's only been seen in computer renderings, and you can't test it without, you can't test it in Earth's gravity because of all the crazy stuff that happens with it. So it's only been seen in computer animations, but this one's going to land the same way. It's going to be a crazy landing. And there's 2 microphones on this machine here. The one at the top there, the little blue circle, that's SuperCam. That is the one, that is sort of the legacy technology that has come up from the Planetary Society for the last 23 years. Is that right? Is that math? And I have a picture of it, I think, maybe. Okay, so that's the SuperCam instrument on top. And bottom left, that little tube sticking out, which you can see bottom right, for that's a quarter right next to it. That's an electret microphone. Excuse me. That's essentially the technology that they've been putting forward for quite a while now. And a lot of studies have been done on this microphone, and they seem fairly confident that it will work pretty well. This is not the one I'm working on, so I don't know as much about it. But if we go back, how do you go back? Do you push the second button? There we go. I'm learning things here. So you see now, sort of down to the right, there's another circle. It's kind of like above where a hubcap would be, if this thing had hubcaps. Do you guys see it there? Okay, so that's where the microphone that I'm working on is going to be. That's part of what's called the Entry, Descent, and Landing System, EDL system. So when this thing comes down in February 19th, 2021, is that right? Anybody else know? Oh, God, I guess I'm the expert. Sorry. So anyway, when this thing lands, you know those, was it the 7 minutes of sorrow, or what do they call it, the 7 minutes of death, terror? Yeah. During that, they're going to be, yeah, exactly. They're going to be, when it gets into the final, I think, 3 to 5 minutes of descent, this thing's going to be loaded with video cameras. And they're going to be recording all this. None of those cameras have a microphone on them, however, and they wanted audio. So that's where I came in, and basically we've been working together to try and find a good audio solution that would capture decent sound, have a high dynamic range to be able to hear the sound of the rockets firing, and hopefully continue to work and operate on the Martian surface throughout the lifetime of the rover. The microphone that we're using it's a more high fidelity microphone, so it could technically sound quite good, but it's also not something, it's meant to be used in like a sterile studio recording environment, not the surface of a desert planet after flying next to a nuke for 6 months in deep space. So, and there won't be much, if any, customization to it. This is what's called a technology demonstration. So the way NASA works, very briefly, there are mission critical things. There's various levels of importance on a mission, and technology demonstration means if this doesn't work, we really don't care. We'd like for it to work. It'd be great if it worked, but if it doesn't work, it will not hamper or affect anything. Like if that microphone doesn't work, everything else on this thing works great. And because of that, it's a little harder to labor for funds to get this thing going, but we're very excited it's going to be there at all, and it may work well. It's a little hard to predict how Martian. The main concern, I think, is going to be the dust particles flying around everywhere. You take great steps in a recording studio to make sure your microphones don't get dusty, and that's what I normally do for a living, is take care of microphones. And now I'm sending one to a really horrible place. So let's see here. What do we got next? Oh, yeah, lots of words. Okay, well, this basically just says everything I just told you. I put it here in case I forgot, but there it is. So we can basically skip this. Yeah, that's everything we just said. Okay, what's next here? Oh, okay, so I have a few more minutes. Am I okay? Okay, a little bit. All right, we're going to do this quickly. So I put together there is, because there's two microphones on this thing, okay, when you have one microphone, you have mono sound, right? It's just AM radio, 1950s. But if you have two microphones, you have stereo, or the possibility of stereo. Even if they are completely different designs, you have that possibility. And so last year I attended a planetary science convention in Berlin, and I put forward a proposal that would basically, if possible, and if money and management allowed, would and if they worked, would allow for the SuperCam microphone and the EDL microphone to basically be turned on at the same time in connection with one of the video camera units, so that you could have video from the surface of Mars with stereo sound, which I think would be really cool. Which is kind of, other people do this for better reasons, but I do this because it's cool. So to try and, you guys get that, and a lot of the public gets that, but it's hard to get people to give you a lot of money for that. So I put together this little video, which was part of that demonstration, and I don't know if the stereo sound is going to project. You should also know this is like way overdone. I used really bad Foley and things like that. But what I did do is I did actually equalize the audio you're going to hear according to the parameters that we had when we put microphones in a vacuum chamber at JPL. So it should actually sound, I mean, it'll probably be much quieter, obviously, than this, but it doesn't sound all that bad. Do I have to push play, or is it going to play?
It'll play.
It's going to play. Okay, so this is just sort of shows you the difference between seeing video with nothing on it and then the effect it will give you when you get sound. And now it'll be louder. So these are video sequences. These are choppy. The video from 2020 is going to be smooth video. This is sort of still frame stuff that's been put together. This one's particularly cool because you'll be able to hear the wheels crackling on the surface. This is definitely something you'll be able to hear on the surface. Maybe not quite as bassy, but this one's a bit of a stretch, but just go with me on it. We got one more here. So this is something I didn't know about until I was doing this research, but sand dunes in certain parts of the world will resonate at low frequency as the wind blows the sand across them. It's kind of a not very well. You hear that low hum? That's actually the sound of sand coming down these sand dunes. So this is, you never know. But this is something that might possibly be heard if you get close enough to one of these things. Anyway, that's it. I'm not going to even tell you where I got the wind sound from. Okay, so I'm just going to wrap this up real quick by saying sort of, I mean, I don't need to explain to you guys what's the point of this because it's just cool and we all get that. But as far as what the future of this, what this might lead to, one of the things, yeah, exactly. Another idea that I'd put forward that I think will be realized in time, either by myself or someone else, is that eventually we're going to have people working on the surface of the planet, and they're going to be wearing spacesuits and walking around. And I don't know if any of you guys ride ATVs or you do anything where you wear helmets, and you get really blocked out by your surroundings. You know, you're sort of like scuba diving or something. You're in a bubble. There's the capability for people working on the surface of Mars to be able to hear their environment and be able to hear when they're drilling and hear their footsteps and if a rock is falling on them or, you know, Marvin the Martian is trying to shoot at them. And I think this would actually be a very useful thing for a lot of reasons. And so this is what we're hoping, and eventually audio will be incorporated into people working and living on the surface of the planet in the next, 100 years, something like that. And so anyway, fancy rendering. And just leave you with this final thought. This guy may not be able to drink that beer, but he'll hear it crack open. Thank you.